Every child is your child. You.
Over the past few weeks, we've all been wondering where the left was going to pivot after the Kavanaugh situation blew up in their face. And in the past few days, I think we've received our answer. Between Hillary Clinton saying the left should no longer be civil, Eric Holder saying that when the right goes low, the left should kick them, several Republican legislators having their home addresses doxed and made public, I've started to get the idea that the left is no longer interested in having an argument or a conversation. They don't want to convince you. They're just interested in getting their way by any means necessary. This belies a greater truth in politics. Politics is fundamentally not a series of conversations or discussions. Politics are just the machinations of the will to power. It's nice to be able to justify morally and logically what you want politically, the type of society that you want to live in. But in recent years, it seems like having arguments is becoming less and less important. Winners in modern American politics don't necessarily have the best arguments. They just have the most numbers and the most will to win. Anyways, today's video is a microcosm of this phenomenon. The star of today's presentation is a guy named Lewis Black, who apparently is a comedian. According to his Wikipedia page, quote, he's best known for his angry demeanor and belligerent comedic style, in which he often simulates having a mental breakdown. His comedy routines often escalate into angry rants about history, politics, religion, or any other cultural trends. Good God, just kill me now. His argument, as he puts forward in today's video, isn't a play to your logical sensibilities or a heartfelt appeal. No, it's literally just Gibbs. F you, pay me. Like, that's actually the title of this video. We're gonna have a great time with this guy, the left's preeminent comedian, but first, your tactical and emergency preparedness. If you're into prepping, hiking, hunting, or anything else outdoors, I encourage you to check out the Get Ready Survival Pack. They offer a heavy-duty expandable backpack that weighs about 3 pounds. This thing can hold nearly 2,500 cubic inches worth of gear. Comes with a mesh water bottle holder, removable waist belt, a ton of storage, integrated water system, hook and loop patch pads, and more. Plus, it comes with a survival blanket and first aid kit, so you're ready to grab and go in case of an emergency. I've been using this bag for traveling and going out in the woods for the past couple weeks, and I cannot recommend it highly enough. Be prepared for whatever is going to happen next in this crazy world we live in. Take advantage of their 65% off sale going on right now and get this pack for the great price of $79.99 and free shipping. It's a great deal for my followers. Check out www.getreadypack.com. That's www.getreadypack.com. Go check it out today.
If you cared two shits about this country, that's the group that you've got to worry about initially.
Remember a few weeks ago when we talked about the social shaming mechanism and how the left has entirely run out of arguments and all they have to rely on now is hoping they can socially shame and stigmatize their opposition? Well, what we're seeing right now in this video is a great example of that. In the first 9 seconds, we've already seen 2 direct personal attacks. You don't care about teachers, and F you if you don't agree with me. How can we possibly hope to get along in a country where the left is radicalizing and adapting this as their new attitude? I don't know how we're going to work that out. Anyways, let's keep going and see if any actual arguments are put forward here.
They're not getting the materials they need in order to teach. They don't have enough desks. I mean, this is pathetic. A lot of what went to funding education were property taxes. And then I started to hear people say, I don't have children, so I don't see why I should have to pay as much property taxes.
All right, so a couple things here. Number one, if we want to address the shortages in classrooms and school hardware, we should look at why there are so many more students now than there have been in the past. What's changed since, 1965, that led to millions more people living in the United States? Of course, we're talking about immigration. The reason schools are overcrowded and undersupplied nowadays is partially because of the massive influx of people, both legal and illegal, that have come into the US, had children, and are now utilizing our school system. According to a new study by Yale and MIT, there are 22 million illegal aliens in the US. 22 million people here illegally. These are people that use our healthcare systems, our roads, our public transit, and yes, definitely our schools. I have an idea for making sure the demand for schools and teachers doesn't outpace supply. Let's close the borders and stop more people from coming into our country and putting demands on our school system. The result, as we know, is worse outcomes for American students as classes become more and more overcrowded. That's a practical solution we could undertake, but I have my doubts that Lewis Black would go for that. The left's answer for nearly everything is just throw more money at the problem and hope that fixes it. They often fail to address the root, underlying causes of an issue, and as a result, just throwing more cash at a problem will never fix it. For example, poverty in the black community is an issue the left loves to talk about. Their proposed fixes often include more money for programs, welfare, cash assistance, etc. But they refuse to address root issues, things like criminality, single parenthood, out-of-wedlock birth, and a matriarchal culture that leads to unsupervised young young men engaging in criminality and violence with no father figures around. Throwing more cash at the ghetto may prove greatly beneficial for Nike retailers and places that sell spinning rims, but throwing cash at the problem doesn't fix it. Similarly, throwing cash at teachers will not fix our country's education problems. Ideally, I would like to pay teachers more so that we can incentivize smart, capable people to start teaching, so it becomes not a fallback major in college. But as long as we continue to fail to address underlying problems, more money will not fix a thing.
Every child is your child. That's the deal, okay? Just because you didn't have children, it's a part of your community. They're the folks you have to take care of.
Yeah, actually, Lewis, that's not the deal. Every child is not my child. My future children are my children. The illegal immigrant kids down the block, yeah, not my kids, not my countrymen, not my responsibility. The ironic thing is, you would have more Americans feeling like they're part of a community if you had less illegal immigration and more homogeneity. If people felt like they have something in common with their neighbors, if they don't need a translator, they're more likely to be okay with chipping in for programs for school funding. They recognize a common good. But if they know their money is going to be spent to subsidize people that they have nothing in common with except a zip code, they're going to be a lot less likely to step in and be okay giving up money for them. I would like to live in a nation where people feel a sense of community and a desire to help each other out. But as the research shows, in a highly diversified country, that simply isn't possible. There's plenty of research, which I will link below, that demonstrates a clear link between increased diversity and a lack of social cohesion and social trust. People have a tendency, when they live around diversity, to withdraw and become insular. I recommend everyone read more on this topic, as it will definitely help you understand issues like this at the root level, not the superficial level.
All right? And if you cared two shits about this country, that's the group that you've got to worry about initially. Because that's the group that you're handing this off to. First off, if you don't believe in them enough to give them what it is they deserve, you know what, then you.
This is the modern left. This is all they're left with. A ranting, profane, old, rootless cosmopolitan globalist comedian that tactically deploys his wow, just wow sentiments in the face of ideas he disagrees with. Do you really feel comfortable handing back power to these people?
All right? Because what you're doing in the end is saying they don't deserve it. You do. What do you need? What is it that you need that you can't put in an extra $20, $100, $50, whatever it is, to make it possible for a child to be properly educated every year?
Yeah, Lewis, that $50 or $100 isn't going to make a difference. The United States spends more per student, on average, than any other country in the OECD, or Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, an international organization of European countries, along with Japan, the US, Canada, Chile, Mexico, and a few others. In other words, these are good countries, not third world ones. So when we talk about the following statistics, we aren't comparing ourselves to places like Haiti or the Congo. These are, with the exception perhaps of Mexico and Colombia, good, solvent, real countries. And wouldn't you know that the United States spends almost $15,200 a year per student, more than Switzerland's $14,900 and far more than Mexico's $2,900. Additionally, teachers in the US make on average $38,000 a year, compared to the OECD average of $31,000. Throwing money at the problem is what we've been doing, and it hasn't worked, Lewis. But you know what countries like Denmark and Japan aren't having to pay for out of their education budgets? English as a second language programs, security guards to guard inner city schools, metal detectors on every door. Denmark and Japan aren't paying the diversity tax in the same way the US is. I can only imagine how much of the American annual education budget goes towards bureaucrats to create cultural inclusivity trainings and multiple extra educators that have to teach 5th and 6th graders how to speak basic English because their parents never speak it at home. Just imagine what we could be doing if we were a real country and we spent as much as we do currently on education.
You can't throw money at education. Yeah, you can. You know where you throw the money at? You throw it at making sure the people who teach, the way in which they were assured of this when I was a kid, when my mother was a teacher in Montgomery County, Maryland, you assure the fact that they will have a middle-class safety net. Because they're devoting their time and their energy to your children. And they're giving them the kind of time and energy you can't give them. This is not Mother Teresa bill. It's teaching.
Lewis doesn't seem to understand that historically, teaching has been a second job that is held by women to provide additional income for their families. In fact, it used to be standard for teachers to be wives with children because they could work during the hours their kids were at school and have the same summers off to spend time with them. Teaching has never been a single income job. It just hasn't been. And anyone trying to tell you otherwise is lying to you. There's no valid reason, by the way, that someone who only works 8 months out of the year, including summer and vacation times, should be making the same salary as someone working full-time 50 weeks a year. In conclusion, what did we learn today? Well, I have to say that I'm actually slightly disturbed by the idea that children are not the responsibility of their parents. They're the responsibility of the community. Because while that may make sense when you're talking about how to properly organize property taxes, if you're extending that model to a child's moral and ethical education, that's going to cause some problems. I don't want people like Lewis Black trying to force their morals or their politics, you can probably guess what his views are, onto my future kids. And I'm fed up with people saying that Americans don't care about our kids because we don't want to give more tax money to the state for them to mismanage in education funds. If we want to improve American education, it starts with cutting off the demand. We need to close the borders and mandate English-only primary education if we're ever going to get out of the problems that we're in.